Only at that point did we become scared, because that's when we realized, wait, this is actually real. And Joel then found out his identity was also stolen. Firstly, your voice does matter as a South African citizen. The way we weren't scared, because we didn't expect it to be this big.
Cyber heroes and cyber fans, welcome to another episode. As you know, my name is Mr. Fingers and I am that cyber security guy. And today's special guest, we have a very young, phenomenal, and innovator who didn't just wait for somebody else to fix a system. Somebody who is young, man. He's uncovered one of the biggest fraud in South Africa, which was the social security agency, which we know as SASSA, the grant system. After discovering it, he realized that his own ID number was also used without his knowledge. Rather than turning away, he also turned to action. As a computer science student and a geoinformatics student at the Stellenbosch University, he applied his tech skills to be able to expose vulnerabilities, demonstrate how thousands of fraudulent applications were processed, and also prompting national attention. Now, today, he leads the charge in cybersecurity and also in education. He's the founder of Taptic Pty Ltd, which is an educational tech company reaching over millions of learners across 8 African countries. He writes, he teaches, he builds. He's also a business person at a very young age. He's using his experience to empower the next generation of cyber defenders as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cyber heroes and cyber fans, I would like you guys to welcome my very own guest, a young, phenomenal, innovative, and a genius at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vera. What's up, my brother?
Oh wow! Thank you very much for that intro. It's actually such an honor to join you on the show today. This is my very first podcast, so I'm actually very excited for this, and this is like a very special moment for me. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No, it's actually good to have you here as well, man. Just starting from when you were growing up and all these things, and what actually made you love computers so much. I mean, you're into computers. You're doing computer science. Why computers, bro?
I actually started with like Apple technology when I was very young, from a young age, about 6, 7 up till 10 years old. I had this passion for technology, and I remember going into an iStore and just falling in love with an iPhone, a very simple piece of tech that's everywhere now. And what I was actually able to do was I could look at any iPhone and tell you exactly what model it is. And obviously, at the time, there were different traits. The iPhone 5 and 5S was square, the 6 was rounded, the 6S had like a slightly different round, the 7 had the matte finish, and the 8 had the glass. And that kind of tech passion kind of just led into coding. And so parents got me my first laptop, started learning Python, and it just went from there. I went crazy from starting my own ed tech company at around grade 10. And then, yeah, that's how I just fell in love with technology.
And you mentioned that you started your own company when you were in grade 10.
Yes.
What really
Yeah.
inspired that? Because I know that for most people who don't know about this company, just for me to give them a huge a breakdown, which you can correct me if I'm actually sliding off. But with this company that you've created, this is to help students when they about to write exams and also tests as well by sharing certain information as well. And I take it what really inspired you, it could be you couldn't find any scope of papers or any information we could help you.
Definitely. So I remember in grade 10, so I just wrote my physics exam. And in matric, once you're done writing a exam, you can't just get up and leave like university. You actually have to sit there till the end. And I went through my work, and I was sitting there and thinking of the previous night, how I tried to access past exam papers. And let me tell you, it was an absolute mission. Like, it was impossible to navigate, government websites, and it was hard to find all the resources in a central location. So from that, I went home, asked dad. I was like, "Hey, dad, can I buy a domain? Can I buy a Wix plan?" So at the time, I was on just normal Wix consumer, and today we're on Wix Enterprise. That's a long story. And dad allowed me, and I spent the holiday building the website. And about 10 months later, we generated like our first Rand through ad revenue. And from there, it went crazy. We started doing about, I think in the one exam season in 2023, we did about 20,000 people visiting the website, which was phenomenal at the time. At the end of grade 11, I was on top of the world. And from there, it just went crazy. We decided, me and my team that I now have, decided, let's try and replicate the same concept for other countries in developing countries. Because, I mean, they also have the same issue with offline government website, hard to navigate sites. Um, and today, we're just about to pass about 12 million visits. And yeah, so it started from a personal experience of me being in high school, unable to find these resources. I saw the gap in the market, and went straight to fixing and finding a solution.
And I love how much of a problem solver you are. And with this being you being a problem solver, I want to talk more about something which got you in trouble as well, and also how it also made you a big name in the cybersecurity industry. It opened up a lot of doors for you. I want to talk about the SASSA incident, how that came about. How were you guys able to find obviously credentials and vulnerabilities? What were you thinking when you were doing that between you and your friend? Because I know it was the two of you guys. What were you guys going through your head? As we know, some systems have the vulnerability, but what was going on?
I was never really in the cybersecurity game. Cyber is portrayed in the movies like, oh, I'm just going to type keys, and oh, I'm in the mainframe all of a sudden taking over the org. As you listeners know, that's not the case. I mean, there's so many different aspects to cyber, whether it's, API vulnerabilities, or intranet vulnerabilities, or whether it's like hacking a game, like a video game you have cheats on. And what actually happened, like, at the start, was, it was me and my friend Joel Cedres. We met about last year, April, May, in a computer science tutorial. And the story of how we met is actually pretty funny. So, in uni, I found it very hard to find someone kind of on my level. And I'm not talking like mathematics books wise. I'm talking on a practical level. I mean, there was no one who was really passionate and was doing something outside of the uni. And I met Joel, and on the first day I met him, we started comparing high school IT like practicals, and the friendship just became a thing until August, September came, and we were just talking about SASSA. I know we're weird, right? We're weird kids, we're just talking about it. And I recall one of my friends in Joburg who, he walked into a bank branch. He was told, "Sir, you already have a bank account with us." And he found out that a person was able to open up a bank account at that bank and get a SASSA grant paid into that account, and was stealing it every month. And Joel then found out his identity was also stolen. So, I mean, okay, two cases. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Identity fraud is going to happen. You can never get that to zero until I checked my ID number. And I'm a pretty, I keep an eye on my credit report. I keep an eye on my bank account activity just to make sure there's no fraud happening. And I found out I was also a victim of this type of identity fraud. So then we did a little investigation. We asked a bunch of friends, found out their identities have also been stolen. And the reason this was possible was from just a simple, small API vulnerability. It's not obvious at first when you look at it, but there wasn't generic error messaging in the SASSA, check status endpoint. So you could put an ID number, and any phone number. So we would put like 060 000 and if there was a grant, it would return a different error message, where as if there wasn't a grant. Um, and the investigation eventually landed up for to us running an entire data set. So that was all the possible people born in February 2005. And that was when we hit the 91% application rate. Now, a grant paid out, especially when it's SRD grant, is supposed to be maybe at maximum 50, 60%. I mean, we know unemployment in South Africa is bad, but it's not 91%. And also, these are people born in 2005. A lot of them are in uni, a lot of them are entering the workforce. There are a pretty big group that are unemployed, but it's not 91% of them. And That was the basis of the entire discovery, just a small API vulnerability in a SASSA system that led to a huge discovery. Yeah, that's about how it started.
Were you not scared? And how did you go about in terms of reporting this? Because I know the next step to try to report something or reaching out to somebody in government is quite hard. I mean, it's hard to get people in government, especially when you have no connections.
So I don't think when we started this investigation, we never actually expected for it to become national like headlines and become such a big of a story. I mean, we weren't scared initially, but we were scared at times because I mean, at the end of the day, you are dealing with the government and you are dealing with fraudsters, and there are so many risks when it comes to things like this. But when we started with this, I mean, we were standing on campus and we decided, okay, let's try and resolve the situation for ourselves first. Like, what does the normal South Africans like with this issue have to do? So we call up SASSA. The regional offices don't answer. The national hotline answered, and it took a painfully long amount of time for them to resolve Joel's case. My case actually never got resolved until months later. We weren't scared because I mean we didn't expect it to be this big. So eventually Joel had a connection. This was like the one connection we had to a presenter at a Cape Town based radio station called Heart FM. For those of you who don't know, it's like a 947 equivalent, pretty big-ish radio station. And basically, Joel managed to convince them to bring us on for about 15 minutes. And I was so excited. I mean, this happened so quick. I mean, it was just one radio interview, but Joel told me like, "Oh, we might go on radio next month." Then the next day he says, "No, we're going on Thursday," and I was like, "What do you mean?" So managed to make our way over to Heart FM on that morning. I think it was a Friday morning, and went on the air and ended up on air for about 40 minutes, and we were talking about the state of cyber, the SASSA story, and telling the world. And coincidentally, when we were there, we met so Heart of Him partnered with Ground Up News, South Africa's largest non-profit news organization. And then we wrote a story and published it on there a few days later. And after that, it went crazy because Ground Up publishes articles copyright free. So news organizations all across the country were able to repost the article on their platform because it was copyright free. And only at that point did we become scared because that's when we realized, wait, this is actually real. There's no undoing it. Guys, digital footprints is a real thing. Once you publish something like this, there's no way to retract or rescind it. It's out in the public domain. You're out to the government. You have to deal with the situation now.
And then from this lesson and doing all this, what are two things that you've learned from this, taking from this? Name two positive things. I don't want no negative things because we're not about negative energy.
I mean, the two positive things, like it's there's a lot of positive things that have happened from this. Many negative, but I think that the positive things that I would like to share with you is firstly, your voice does matter as a South African citizen. The way we were treated by government was actually pretty good. We were invited to deliver our findings to all the politicians in charge of SASSA. So in front of the minister and all the Department of Social Development Portfolio Committee members, that's all the members of parliament, invited us to actually tell our story and show what we found. And they were actually able to act on it. So I think the first thing there is your voice is heard. And then the second positive thing is it changed the trajectory of my life. Before this podcast, we were talking, before we started rolling, and we were talking about matric results. I don't have like straight A's. I mean, everyone thinks I'm this genius when it comes to books, but I'm an individual that actually struggles with math. It doesn't come like strong to me. I'm not going to get 90s for math. In uni, I just passed and getting that 51% for maths. But I'm very passionate and very good of practical things. So what came out of me making this noise, although it put my life a bit at risk, was the opportunity to meet people in the industry and work a little bit in corporate, doing an internship at one of South Africa's largest banks and also one of South Africa's largest investment platforms, which opened up a lot more doors to me. I mean, I'm speaking at a few cybersecurity events around Cape Town in a few days. Hopefully, going to inspire a bunch of young people to actually break into this industry, learn more, and upskill themselves so they can also make a great impact in this world.
And since you also mentioned about breaking into cybersecurity, and that's something that we also passionate about in this podcast. What advice would you give to somebody who's out there saying, "Hey, man, I've also been coding. I'm a computer science student, but I want to break into cybersecurity because maybe you yourself, speaking as you know, you have obviously done internships and currently are also doing internships for a few companies as well. What advice would you give to somebody either they're chilling at home or been upskilling themselves? What advice would you give to somebody like that?
So my advice is unorthodox. There are 100,000 things industry will tell you, do certs, do all of this. But the Veer method is like this. There are so many, aspects and avenues of cybersecurity out there. Pick one thing, right? One specialized thing, whether it's dark web or whether it's API testing or whether it's, you know, pen testing, cross-site scripting, or some avenue of cybersecurity that you're really passionate about and become the best person in the world of that specific task. So let's take API, testing, which is actually kind of how I started. I enjoyed, I mean, before even learning about Burp Suite, I started on Postman, and my natural instincts these days is still to test APIs in Postman. Obviously, now I use things like Burp Suite because they're a lot more better. But find that one thing, become really, really good at it. And when I say really good at it, ask everyone about it. Learn every possible thing about it. Everyone will always have to do the basic certifications. You'll have to get that one AWS cloud cert and maybe a CompTIA or a network or a plus cert, but become really good at that one thing. And then when you think you are the best at that thing, no, you're not. Remember that there's always someone better than you. And once you're better at that one thing and you have that passion, you'll go far because in the industry, you're able to engage on that topic. You're able to meet other people and impress them. And when you impress someone in cybersecurity, you leave a lasting impact in their mind. That's the way you get an internship. That's the way you get a job at the end of the day. The only way to break into cyber in this competitive environment is to become really good at a specific thing and then use those skills in the real world.
Oh, amazing. What is your 2 to 3 year plan as soon as you're done with your, I think you're doing a degree or diploma? As soon as you're done with that,
Yeah.
what's your plan?
So I'm doing a bachelor's of science degree. So my next kind of 2 3 year plan is one, let's get through this academic degree. It's tough. People say, oh, a comp sci degree and a geoinformatics degree is going to be easy. You get to, just code all day. But no, you have to learn functional programming, algorithms, like what type of code is the most optimal, learning things like that. Because I mean, in the industry, okay, you're coding your one web app for 10 people. That's easy to do. There's one login screen for 10 people, it's one database. But what happens when you have 1,000 people? What happens when you have 1 million people? What happens when you're like the big five banks, which all have over 10 million customers? And all those customers have to be able to log in at the same time. So obviously, that's the uni degree, plain and simple. Finish that till the end. Because my mom is also an academic, I know my mom's watching this podcast right now, but my mom always emphasizes on finishing the degree, and I agree with her. It's very important that I do. And then once I exit the university, which I'm actually going to miss, Stellenbosch is wonderful for any student who wants to study here. I always recommend it. Best student life, most safe environment, and really good top notch education. After I leave uni, I'm most probably going to end up working in corporate for a few years, either at the bank I've been working with or at the investment company. Or if someone gives me a promising offer, I think it's important that as I start out my career, I just experience corporate. And after corporate, at maybe 3 4 years time, I'm probably going to end up starting my own thing or going full time into one of my existing ventures, whether it's Taptic, the education company, or one of my other cybersecurity ventures that I am working on right now.
100%. Take us through your cybersecurity venture that you are currently working on right now. I know it. Most people at home don't know it, which is very cool. And how you also built that. People don't know that. Take us through that.
Yeah, so recently I've been working on this project called Dark Notify. I know it's a very cool project that I'm so excited to explain to you listening today. Basically, we know of the industry of cybersecurity, data leaks, hacker groups, all posting things in the dark web, but there wasn't a, you know, tool that I could firstly one afford for dark web monitoring, and also that I can that was like scalable and something that the user actually wanted to use. A lot of these cybersecurity monitoring services are very expensive, hard to use, and I thought, let me try something. So over the course of the past year, I've been building a bunch of web scrapers that are automated and search the dark web for data breaches. And it's proven pretty successful so far. I mean, it's still in beta testing. We've got a few big players on our beta testing group. And in the past few months, the intelligence data I've been able to get from Dark Notify has been able to feed one of South Africa's biggest media organizations for them to write articles on the breaches. I mean, this week where we've been actually dealing with a government breach in one of the government systems. And I mean, that's a pretty big story. It's also a very serious issue when government organizations get hacked. It really does affect people in the real world when this happens. I mean, if you think of any bank or any department being offline, people cannot access services like critical services, whether it's paying their electricity bill or water bill, or whether you're a grant recipient and you need access to urgent funds so you can pay for things like school fees or just feed yourself, especially important in a South African context. So Dark Notify aims to change the game in the cybersecurity monitoring industry. And our goal is to get the best working cybersecurity, high automated intelligence system out there.
Ah, man, amazing, man. And, just leaving the people out there with some final words. If you could challenge the cybersecurity industry right now to rethink one thing or two things, what would it be and why?
I think the one thing I want to talk about here is cybersecurity is very closed. When I say closed, I mean it's very secretive in the bank and in the industry, and it's actually very hard for a student who's in university or studying to actually go and make an impact in the bank. And I mean, when I went to my bank and I was given specific access to banking systems, a lot of people started complaining because at the time I was a 19-year-old kid, and they were like, how can you give this 19-year-old kid access to this system? But what the industry learned from me being at that bank was kids actually know what they're doing. Cybersecurity, just because you have 30 years in cybersecurity, doesn't mean that you are better than a random kid. I mean, there's been 15, 16-year-old kids that have been able to hack into some large international companies like Google and Microsoft. And if 16-year-old kids know what's modern, you need to leverage and use the youth that understand vulnerabilities in modern systems so that they can be patched. Because we know the industry today, there's always going to be, unfortunately, there's always going to be people who are going to use their skills for bad. So that means you need to stay at the top of the industry and allow people in. And I mean, my exposure has led to some good improvements where I worked. And I think if organizations start relaxing it and also sharing between organizations, why is because at the end of the day, why should one bank not implement the same security measures as the other bank? At the end of the day, money is very important. There should be collaboration and cooperation, which I've seen there is thankfully throughout some industries, but it should be cross-wide in the industry.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and also sharing your story with the audience and with me as well. You're doing absolutely great. And I can't wait to see in the next 3 to 4 years where you're going to be, because I know you're going to be very far and where you're going to be going. And hopefully, you're not too much of a celebrity during that moment in time where I can't even get past you. I have to go through, security guards.
Ah,
But I'm super excited to see the next 5 years where you're going to be. So I do see a bright future. So shout out to you, man. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing my quick story, and I hope to inspire some of you. I mean, I'm always open to talking with anyone who'd like to reach out. You can reach out over LinkedIn, just request to follow me and shoot me a DM. I'm always up for collaboration. But yeah, thank you very much for having me.